Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, former President Donald Trump's hunt for money leads him to hawk golden sneakers following an expensive civil fraud case in New York. And back home, kids in kindergarten and communism, as lawmakers in Tallahassee again try and dictate what should be taught in schools. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, unbiased look at the top stories affecting the state, with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions that affect our lives. We want to take a moment to say hello to our many viewers watching, as they do every week, on stations throughout the state, including stations in Tampa, Gainesville, Panama City, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, and elsewhere. I am joined today, as I am every week, by my co-host, Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here again, Frank.
Okay. Former President Donald Trump's mounting and now very expensive legal bills are piling up. A judge deciding this week that he and his son should pay for misleading real estate financial practices. The judge ordering the former president to pay $355 million to the state of New York, plus the millions he already owes in the high-profile defamation case involving E. Jean Carroll. Doctor, my question to you to start the show is, at what point do independents and even some Republicans on the fence decide that this is just too much?
Well, Frank, first off, this is a big question and big money, okay? So I first like to start with the fact that it may not be that bad for Donald Trump. He's very good at projecting who he is. He wants to be the authoritarian figure. Well, the magnitude of this money, he could perhaps parlay into more success for himself. I know that sounds kind of weird.
It does sound weird.
But he's good at it, and he may be able to actually push that agenda. Now, the flip side to that, okay, is that this is really about his behavior that's going to become more apparent to voters, to answer your question. For example, he says his apartment in New York was 30,000 square feet. He wrote off all of this. He exaggerated the value. They come to measure it. It's about 10,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. It's not something that anyone else could possibly get away with in terms of valuation. So the fraud is significant.
All right, let's talk about the golden sneakers that he's selling, okay. The MAGA sneakers that are $400. There are likely people out there who are struggling to pay their rent, maybe their electric bill, and it's not the majority of them, I'm sure, but some of them are writing checks for $400 for these sneakers. Plus, there's a GoFundMe page where he's raising money, tens of thousands of dollars already raised. Again, what is the psychology behind someone saying, okay, you've done something wrong and you have been convicted for that. We're going to help you with your legal bills, even though we may not have the money to do so?
Well, Frank, as we've said before on this show, a lot of folks want a boss. They really prefer the authoritarian figure. And Donald Trump, again, is very good at doing that. Give him credit. As you always say, he has energy and presence. He does have that. Mm-hmm. And he projects it to these people who really want him.
What's going on in their heads?
What's going on in their head is that they're thinking that they would prefer this person because they want a leader who's a boss-like character. Mm-hmm. And he is a character. Everyone would agree with that, I believe. So he's projecting who he is. They like it. And the sneakers, of course, I don't think are going to be good financially, but he may be doing it to market himself. And I think that's really the nuts and bolts of the sneaker issue.
All right. He's also, there's a move with regard to the Republican National Committee to put his daughter-in-law in the vice chair position. Mm-hmm. Some critics, not all of them, but some critics say, hey, this may be presented access to that money as well. It could be siphoned off, not that we're saying it's going to be. But, you know, putting your daughter-in-law there, you know, again, the thoughts.
My thoughts here psychologically is that this is a man, Donald Trump, who wants total control. He's a control freak. He's a control figure. Mm-hmm. And that's why people relate to him. Some people obviously don't, but a lot of people like that control. And now he has gained control, total control of the Republican Party. That's what it means, and that's who he is.
It's interesting that, again, I don't want to harp on this, but there are some folks who can't afford this, but they continue to send money. I guess, are they hoping that with Donald Trump's policy, should he be reelected, that they will do better.
Frank, psychologists often talk about belongingness, being a part of something. And for these folks, maybe they're angry, they're frustrated, they want to change, they want someone who's powerful, then they want him. So they feel like they're part of it by even contributing a few dollars.
What about the independent voters, the suburban voters who have been watching this and seeing there's one conviction, there's more court cases on the way? At what point did they say, I don't know if I want my president, should I vote for him and he be reelected, to be something like this?
Very good point, because with independents and moderates, they're going to see more and more of this behavior by Donald Trump, and that's where he has problems. That's why he really doesn't want to go to court. That's what they're going to see, his behavior.
All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to go off on the Supreme Court, okay? Not in such a negative way, but they really need to do something when it comes to this issue of immunity, presidential immunity. You don't really need to be a lawyer. You don't have to have any degrees when it comes to this case. What you need is very simple, common sense. The president cannot have total immunity. Most people would agree with that. He or she cannot steal hundreds of millions of dollars a week and then say, oh, by the way, I'm immune. It doesn't make any sense. And he can't or she can't go out and kill people and then say, well, you know what? I have presidential immunity. It should take about 5 minutes for the Supreme Court to make a decision on this. They need to come forward, make a decision, and look good rather than delay, which will cause problems with the optics.
And that decision is upcoming shortly.
Shortly.
It will be. All right, thank you, Doctor. Coming up, state lawmakers are pushing a bill that would teach kids about communism starting in kindergarten. And the Florida legislature says no to the state's Republican Party wish list when Power in Politics continues. Welcome back to Power in Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. The Florida legislature is pushing hard for a bill that would teach school children the dangers of communism, lessons that would begin in kindergarten. Dr. Rossi, again, a psychological issue here because you have to get into the minds of kids. Are they prepared in that first kindergarten class to learn about communism?
Well, Frank, really? I mean, if the first thing is this necessary? Kindergarten? I mean, if you want to teach about communism, about democracy, later. How about later in life?
Well, currently they do it in 7th grade, so you're an early teen at that point.
Sounds pretty good to me. This, again, seems like what we've discussed in the past, a political stunt. Someone's trying to look, people are trying to look like they're pro-democracy or pro-America. It's really kind of a cheap way to go, I think. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fly.
And can a mind that young grasp the concept of communism?
No. Absolutely not. It doesn't. I mean, the differences here between democracy and communism and the thought process, it really should be at about the 7th grade. That's a good time.
So obviously you're not for it, obviously.
No,
right.
no.
The state Republican Party gave the legislature a wish list, 10 things they would like the legislature to do in this session. And the legislature said, hold on a second. We don't take orders from you. Is this the beginning of some pushback?
There's pushback already. I think we're going to see more of it. And people have a different perspective about the governor right now.
He's been known to get what he wants, especially in that first session, and the one just before the presidential campaign as well, most especially. How does he handle that some of these legislators are now saying no?
Well, as we discussed previously, we're going to see if he becomes more moderate and he makes a pitch to be more appealing.
You're a psychologist. Is he capable of doing that based on what you've seen so far?
People are definitely capable of making change. Does he want to? Because I think the governor comes from a background where he is very, very conservative. He was a founder of the Freedom Caucus in the House. So this tells me that he has very deep roots in the extreme conservative part of the Republican Party. He'd have to make a major change with his personality here. Can he do it? Yes. Will he do it? I kind of doubt it.
Well, you're talking about two issues here. You're talking about the policies that he is asking for,
right,
and his personality, which He visited locally not too long ago, and we had a chance to look at him up close. He's not a backslapper, handshaker, how are you, hugger guy. He seems a little standoffish, and I'm not sure if he's able to change that aspect.
Well, he could work on it. He could take a look at Reagan. He could take a look at Clinton. He could take a look at George W. Bush, who did not have the most engaging personality, but he was himself, and he was a decent listener. The governor really likes to portray himself as pretty much my way or the highway, and he's been good at that. He's been elected twice, but now it's a different ballgame. It's a different situation. You know, psychologists talk about Gestalt psychology.
Excuse me?
You're a product of the past,
right,
the present, and the future. Well, where is the governor going? We have to see.
That's why I like hanging out with you. Gestalt?
Gestalt.
It's a German word, obviously.
Gestalt. Yes.
All right. A follow-up now to a new law that requires Florida elected municipal officials to disclose details of their personal finances, net worth, incomes, assets, and so on. We disagree on this. You think if you're running for city council or commissioner that you should not have to reveal what you own and so on and so forth. I think you do. You think it's not necessary?
I don't think it's necessary because we limit the pool of people who want to serve. I mean, I think there should be a demarcation, a delineation, if you will. When you're running for Congress, the United States Senate, or of course President, you need to disclose. But to run for the city council, it just seems like it's a burden that should not be met for that type of situation.
And I would respectfully disagree because I think we need to know, even at the local level, if that politician owns stock in a local plumbing company, or we need to know where his or her money is. It doesn't have to be detailed down to the penny, but just a general idea. We need to know who we are electing, and I think the more information, the better.
Well, I see your point. But the weight of this, I feel, is like on my side of the argument. That's how I feel, because I just believe that it's a lot to ask for someone to run and disclose everything.
So you think that a lot of politicians who don't have aspirations beyond being a council person or a commissioner or whatever the case may be might say, you know what, I don't want my neighbor to know that I have X amount of dollars. And
that's right. I mean, in Florida, maybe people don't want others to know that they're have a lot of stock portfolio in Disney. It could be a political issue. And they don't want to do anything more except be mayor or on the council.
All right. Good point. We disagree. We respectfully disagree. Gestalt.
Gestalt.
That is the word for today. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the always popular sunshine or showers segment, when we see who enjoyed the warm rays of sunshine this week in Florida and who got caught in the rain, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. As you know, the weather can change in a moment in Florida, so every week we span the great state to find out who enjoyed some sunshine and who got caught in the rain. It's time for the very popular segment, Sunshine or Showers. We'll start with the sunshine. Doctor, who's in the sunshine this week?
Okay, Frank, Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton. I'm putting them in big sunshine, okay?
Lots of sunshine.
Because what they're doing is they're trying to frame out the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare with some of the doctors associated with the university. And they're trying to take a look at how artificial intelligence can work to make healthcare much better, including sports medicine. So they're really looking at all of the factors and what could happen down the road with artificial intelligence. I think it's great for healthcare.
Well, it makes sense. It will help doctors and nurses and so on with care.
Yeah,
why not use it?
They're doing a good job in taking a look at this whole thing.
All right, so they're in the sunshine.
Yep.
You're asking me who's in the
Please.
You never ask. I ask you to ask and you don't ask.
Please.
Okay. I'm going to follow up on a story we did earlier in the show. I am going to put State Senate President Kathleen Passidomo in the sunshine, and I'll tell you why. We talked about the Republican Party, thought it was last year, they gave the legislature a wish list of 10 things they want the legislature to pass, and she has already said 4 of these will never have a vote. We're not doing 4 of these. You know, I respect her because she's in the majority party. She's in a supermajority House, and she's saying, you know, we don't have to take orders from the Republican Party. We don't have to take orders from anybody. This is an independent entity of the government, and we'll decide what we want to vote on. So there's some pushback not only to the governor, but the Republican Party. So Kathleen Passidomo, you are in the sunshine this week.
She's standing her ground, which is very nice in politics.
Now, we had a rainy day in Florida
Oh, yeah.
this past week. It rained the whole day, talking about getting soaked to the skin. And it's just an example that with every sunshiny day, there's a rainy day. All right, so who is in the showers this week?
Well,
for you?
heavy rain for Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. He's really not going forward with bills. So we don't even get a vote in the House of Representatives. And what I'm saying is a vote on Ukraine or a vote on Israel, he's got to be able to step it up. Even if he loses his job, he's got to step it up and have these bills come forward, and he's resisting. I think he deserves to be in the showers, and unless he changes, it's really going to be rough.
Well, in defense of the Speaker, he has a really slim margin to work with.
Right.
But to your point, at least, I read recently that this is the most unproductive Congress since Harry Truman's Do-Nothing Congress in 1948. That's what the former president called it. But was it 80 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to step it up, maybe even risk his job. But if he doesn't, we're at a standstill. And that's not what this country wants right now, being as divided as it is.
So for you, at least, Mike Johnson is in the showers.
In the showers. And for you, Frank.
See, now you're getting the hang of it.
All right,
now you're
okay,
getting the hang of it.
all right.
I am going to put Tucker Carlson in the showers. And I think you know why. I think most viewers know why. You know, we remember a time, you and I, when, you know, Ronald Reagan and everyone understood in the Republican Party and in government that Russia was the enemy, that it was communism, it didn't work. And now we have Tucker Carlson. You know, he's a quote-unquote journalist, probably more of a commentator than a journalist. He goes over to Russia and he interviews Putin, Vladimir Putin, without any discussion about his opponents, any discussion about anything significant. Right. It was just a visit to Russia to say, hey, we love you. And I have a problem with that. I don't know why we see this again and again and why it's so acceptable, but Tucker Carlson is in the showers this week for me.
I think he deserves to be in the showers. I think most Americans don't like to see him with the Russian leader. I think many Americans are really having a problem with the Russians, and that there's a negative feeling there.
All right, thank you, Doctor. We have sunshine and showers. We have covered it for the week. All right, it's time to take a break. When we return, a commentary by yours truly titled Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. There's a deep, dark secret in the world of politics, a secret that neither politicians nor the news media talk about, and it's this. Political polling is no longer accurate and hasn't been for quite some time. We saw another example of it this past week in New York. The election to fill the congressional seat once held by George Santos was supposed to go down to the wire. Political pundits reading the polls breathlessly predicted it would come down to 1 percentage point or less. Turned out the Democrat in the race, Tom Suozzi, won by 8 percentage points. Hillary Clinton was supposed to beat Donald Trump handily in 2016. In fact, most polling showed she had an 83% chance of winning. We now know how that turned out. Closer to home, and in his first time around, 6 out of 8 major polling firms had Democrat Andrew Gillum defeating Ron DeSantis for governor. Once again, the pollsters let us down. Some of us remember a time when a polling company called your home. You would pick up your wall-mounted phone, you know, the one with the long wire, and tell a pollster who you would vote for in the upcoming election. They knew where you lived, and before the days of political skepticism, you were happy to give them your thoughts. Now, with smartphones, the pollsters are not sure where you are. Many of us in Florida have retained our old area codes and phone numbers, the ones we used when we were up north. A pollster might call you thinking you're a resident of Michigan, ask you questions about the upcoming race in that state while you're actually on a beach in Fort Lauderdale and have been a permanent resident of Florida for years. Combine that with those who don't want pollsters to know how they'll vote or give pollsters fake answers, and you have the recipe for what we're seeing now. The news media is also to blame. Without polls, there would be no way to gin up the suspense going into an election. Suspense and fear equals eyeballs. Eyeballs equal ratings. Ratings equal money. I've also noticed that once the race is over and the polling proves that the predictions were wrong, nothing is said about it. There are no mea culpas, just more chatter about what the next poll shows. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine folks working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you next week at this time on this station. Have a great week.